WBTV News 3 is brought to you by Value City Furniture.
Tonight, WBTV is on your side with evidence. You may have been overcharged at the grocery store. And what's more, you may have eaten something different than what you thought you bought. Purposely mislabeled fish sold to customers considered seafood fraud in the eyes of the FDA.
Big reports on this issue have been sent to Congress in recent years in an effort to crack down on a mislabeling problem, but it apparently persists. And Jamie Bull is here now with the Problem Solver investigation.
Yeah, those congressional reports highlight many problems, but one of the biggest is substituting more expensive fish with a cheaper one. That's why the FDA has this list right here. It spells out exactly how different species are to be labeled. Well, we found mistaken labels on fish sitting in a well-known grocery store, and as a result, customers may have been paying too much. It's tonight's Problem Solver investigation.
Let's take about an inch off.
This is a fish story where things aren't always as they appear.
Has this been going on for some time?
Probably, I think, since the beginning of the spring of '09.
We have agreed to protect the identity of a person with knowledge of operations at Fresher Than Fresh, a Gastonia company that supplies fresh seafood to several grocery store chains.
4 or 5.
But our source says one grocer, Food Lion, was treated differently than the rest. It didn't always get what it ordered. Instead of salmon, Fresher Than Fresh would sometimes send steelhead trout. Telling the salmon and steelhead apart visually is tough for anyone. And it's important to point out there is no health risk to eating one over the other.
What would be the motive for doing this?
I think money.
It's cheaper to send trout as opposed to send salmon.
Yes.
Confirming the substitutions meant we had to do some shopping.
There's some fresh salmon fillet.
In early March, we bought one piece from a Food Lion store and one from a Harris Teeter. Both were labeled salmon. We've got our 2 pieces of fish, we've labeled them Sample 1 and Sample 2. We vacuum packed them, we're going to put it here in ice, and we're going to ship them off to a lab in Florida for DNA testing. 2 days later, we got our results. The piece from Harris Teeter was Atlantic salmon. The fish from Food Lion was steelhead trout.
About $1 a pound difference.
On the phone telling us the steelhead was cheaper was Fresher Than Fresh's president, Ronnie Wren. We called to tell him what we had found.
I'd like to come and share some of these results with you.
He first told us Food Lion may have mislabeled the fish. He then said it's possible his workers, who he says move up to 30,000 pounds of salmon a week, made an isolated mistake.
It's completely untrue. We would have to go ask in the morning what we were using, whether we were using salmon or steelhead.
Even though the order was supposed to be salmon. So the company knew it was sending the wrong product.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
We want to point out after the first test, we did check to make sure it wasn't an isolated case. Over the next month, we bought more fish from more stores.
Sample 8.
We cut up and sent off 13 more samples from Food Lion stores to be tested. 10 of them came back as Atlantic salmon. 1 came back as typically more expensive sockeye salmon, but 2 others were steelhead trout.
You pick a time, we'll be there.
Ronnie Wren first told us he would meet with us in person to answer our questions. He changed his mind, and in a later voicemail, changed what he told us about prices.
We can prove that there was no financial gain. In fact, the average cost of this fish over this period in question was 4 cents a pound higher.
He was now saying Food Lion got a more expensive fish, but he was also admitting Food Lion didn't know they were getting substitutes.
We'll admit that we're wrong and we're going to take our consequences, but it's not this big deal.
Fresher Than Fresh then offered a written statement. It didn't offer documented proof on prices, and it makes clear the substitutions weren't isolated. It does say the amount of steelhead sent was less than 10%, and the time period was shorter than a year. Wren's statement also says top management was not aware of the situation, but some employees were. Their motive was simply to supply a customer with the amount of high-quality product ordered. Now, a Fresher Than Fresh spokesperson confirmed only Food Lion got the substitutes. He didn't say why and couldn't explain how top management would be unaware this was happening. An attorney for Fresher Than Fresh has told us arrangements have been made for the shipments to be fully investigated and confirmed by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. Now, as for Food Line, it didn't get what it ordered, and as a result, fish was mislabeled under FDA guidelines. The company not happy about it. Food Line sent us this statement. It reads in part, "We are appalled that our customers and our company were victims of intentional and deceptive practices by Fresher Than Fresh. We do not tolerate this type of activity, and as a result, we are no longer doing business with Fresher Than Fresh." Upon learning of this, Food Line has removed fresh Atlantic salmon provided by Fresher Than Fresh. Food Line also says it's enhancing its seafood policies and inspection procedures. Going forward, it will be conducting random testing of its products to be done by a third-party laboratory. As for customers, Food Line also says it will provide refunds to anyone who wants to return fresh salmon purchased at its stores.
Jamie, what about the FDA, the federal regulators? Are they aware of all this?
Yeah, they are, absolutely. And it says it will give the information appropriate consideration, but cannot confirm anything about whether it'll take any action. The biggest issue really for the FDA is the economics of this. It will want to know if there is evidence of economic deception for the purpose of defrauding the customer. Again, Fresher Than Fresh, Tanya saying it saw no financial gain in this.
We saw in your report, Jamie, that you tested fish, a piece of fish from Harris Teeter. Did you test from any other stores?
Yeah, we did. We also tested samples from Bilo, from Lowe's, also Bloom, as well as the Harris Teeter you saw. All those samples came back as labeled.
All right, important story. Well, I know you'll continue to follow it. Jamie, thanks. Paul?
Tonight, we know what caused a fire and explosion